Hey, Nigel.
Hey, Nick.
We were talking about microneedles the other day, and I know that technology's been around for a while, but doesn't seem to have stuck.
You could say that. Yeah, I mean, it's still quite a wide field, and I think they're still looking for those, billion use applications, if you will. But yeah, it's still around, and I think sometimes I think it just wonders if it just appeals to people who want 100 needle sticks instead of one. But there are quite a variety of types and applications. So there are some that are more like a sugar, if you want to call it that, and they just kind of break the outer dermal layers of your skin, and that dissolve into your body and into your bloodstream. And then there are other ones that are an array of hollow needles, and they can be as many as hundreds or multi-hundreds, or as few as like 3. Okay. And the drug would get injected into the body through the skin, through the center of those needles, just like a regular needle, except instead of one larger needle, an array of smaller ones.
Right, and I guess when we talk micro, right?
Micro.
What size range are we talking about with a micro needle?
Yeah, it's I'm not an authority on how to define these exactly, but the smaller ones can be as small as human hair sized, where you can see them, but they're basically so small you can hardly feel them, almost like sandpaper in some ways if you were to brush your fingers across them. And then others just look, I guess, almost like a standard traditional needle, but in a scaled down form. And then those ones would be arrayed usually in lower numbers of maybe 3 or 10 or a dozen or up to 100.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as product developers, right, I always like to think about target product profile in particular. And so with microneedle versus the traditional needle, or even perhaps a dermal patch, which wouldn't have any needles.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the advantage of that product?
Yeah. Generally, the idea is for some drugs, you don't need to go into the muscle. Okay. You can comment on which ones those may or may not want to go into. And then, so if you don't, what trade-offs can we make for pain, generally? Okay. And so the idea is that it hurts less to have many, many small abrasions versus the deeper one. And there's also a factor with physiologically, your nerve endings have different concentrations of different layers. So you'll find fewer or none in the dead layers of your outer skin, and then fewer under that, and then more at certain depths. So if you can avoid those kind of high concentrations, you can avoid the discomfort associated with needles, and then you can obviously increase people's interest in getting them on time and as needed.
Right, yeah, and so that's one of the big tenets of any drug delivery, right? And that's compliance, I guess, if you're turning it out to free range humans, as we like to say.
And you can easily find papers on how many people avoid the necessary treatments because they think, I don't need it and I hate needles, so I'm out of here. But I find one interesting thing about it is just some of them are so small it actually impacts the drugs that can be delivered.
Right, yeah, it would limit, like if there's different molecule sizes, wouldn't be amenable to microneedles, perhaps, right?
Yeah, that's my understanding. The way that they shear coming through, and so my understanding is the larger molecules either literally don't fit or break up basically based on the shear forces, as you can picture all the liquid kind of coming in like a funnel. And the forces associated with that on such a tiny molecule.
Fascinating.
Yeah. How strong is an electron-proton pair?
Jeez, it's really getting deep into the weeds there.
Yeah.
Well, very good. Well, hopefully someday microneedles will stick.
Yeah, I hope so. If not once, hundreds of times.
There you go.